welcome to another episode of Looking for Love in All the Wrong Dust Jackets, a show where three cool ladies talk to you about romance, whether that's in books, movies, TV shows, whatever we like. My name is Liz.
I'm Danny.
I'm Wiggles.
And welcome to the show. Today we are reading and discussing the book The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. But before we get into that, I gotta warn y'all that we are some crass ladies. We like to swear. We're gonna talk about all the naughty times. So if you don't like that, I get it. It's fine, but you've been warned.
You are not invited to our Mojo Dojo Casa house.
What Wiggle said. Okay, but before we go any further and talk about this, I gotta know, what have you guys been like reading or watching, listening? What have you been up to? Oh, come on, you guys.
I didn't do shit.
Every time.
I didn't do shit. I played Baldur's Gate, and then I shut my brain off. And then it was many hours later, and I woke up, and I was like, oh my god, it is dark out again.
It's just like what, every day? Just like on repeat? Play Baldur's Gate, fall asleep on the couch, and then go, oh shit, I need to go to bed?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, not entirely. I do it in my bed.
Let's make those romance scenes extra romantic.
Unfortunately, no. It was fully fade to black, and it was way more spicy in the fucking trial run.
Oh, the beta when you were a cool beta tester.
Yeah, and they even ask you at the beginning if you want nudity, and I was like, correct.
Yes.
Now I do.
Yes.
I didn't know I wanted it, but now I do. And then they create a character with a full bush for you. You can decide what you want it to look like.
Wow. They went into detail.
Yeah, and it was a fade to black. They were fully clothed.
Oh.
Been built into this.
That is disappointing.
Sad
But he
panda.
said he loves me. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna have to go back and read Romance the Star because Gail ain't cutting it.
Gotta get that hot vampire elf, bro.
Yeah, but he's also kind of a whiny bitch. Like, I get, like, he's hot, but he's also like, oh, I have to be outside.
Yeah, I've seen the TikToks of him, and he seems like a whiny bitch.
This is so unrefined. Like, bitch, you were eating rats. Calm down. Oh my god. Anyway, so that's what I've been doing.
Okay, in my defense, I was just pausing to let her go instead of me go first. I went down the rabbit hole that is Dollhouse.
Yes,
Yeah.
good. Welcome to the dark side.
Yep.
Yes.
I'm in love.
He's, how far are you?
I'm like 10 or 12 episodes in.
That's still the first season, right?
Yes, it is. But I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, I'm really in love with Victor. Oh, poor Victor.
Oh,
Poor sweet Victor.
Poor
sweet
sweet
boy.
Victor. He just wants to save them.
Yes.
damn it! Now I need to rewatch Dollhouse. I haven't watched that in years. Fuck.
I'm real tempted, I won't lie. But
You
the thing is, it's like, I can't watch a few episodes. Like, again, with Grey's Anatomy, I can be like, oh, just watch that episode. No, I gotta watch the whole thing.
But since you've seen it before, you could put it on the background while you're playing Baldur's Gate.
No, I
You
get
can't
too
pull a
ingrained
Danny?
in the game I'm playing.
I guess it depends on what type of game you're playing and if you've played it before.
Well, I mean, I could do it with Tetris, probably.
I
But if there's,
constantly
like,
have.
character development, I'm like, how do I interact with an NPC? Let me know!
I constantly have all sorts of shit going on. What you been up to?
I finally, after 1 year, finished Streams of Silver by R.A. Salvatore, which is the 5th book in the Legend of Drizzt series. So drastically different than romance. We're talking epic fantasies.
Ooh.
Yeah, but the problem is because I listened to the audiobook literally over a year, I was like, I can't properly write this. I don't even know what's happening like most of the time.
Yeah.
But I finally finished it.
Yeah.
And I was also down the video game rabbit hole, but I was playing Starfield that just came out.
Is that good as everyone's hyping it up to be?
I really like it, but they give you no instructions in the beginning of the game on what to do or how to do it, and so you're just like, I'll fly in a ship.
What is that thing now where they're like, tutorials? Not for you, sucker! You just get to die! Like, what?
There's like one tutorial on how to fly a ship, and it's one guy just like one narrator being like, just do this. And I looked at Pappy and I was like, what the fuck did he say? And he's like, okay, you have to do these things. And I was like, okay. Yeah. So, but I like it. I mean, it's Bethesda who made like the Elder Scrolls games and the Fallout games and all that. So, so no sex for me though.
God damn it. Because everyone knows that video game smut is the best.
Well, let's not go down that dark path. We'll be talking about Dragon Age for the next 5 hours.
Oh my god. We can't.
No,
and so we won't. And so I'm going to pretend we never even were erasing it.
Well, that would entail Danny sitting in the corner of the room saying nothing.
Just looking at like a ping pong match of stupidity.
Yep, because I have nothing to contribute.
Well, get on it and play those games, Danny.
When do I have fucking time, Wiggles?
Anyway.
Whenever you play Red Dead, you can play that instead while you're watching Grey's Anatomy, while you're pooping.
No, don't play it while you're pooping. I'm going to put the kibosh on that one.
That seems like a lot of work when you need to poop.
It's
I also
messy.
don't take that long to poop.
Also, like, do you have your situation set up where you could, like, see your TV?
No, not for the Xbox. But I was like, if you had a Switch, which you can't play Dragon Age on, but you can take your Switch to the pooper.
Listen,
oh yeah, and
y'all are spending too much time in the pooper if you can play a video game on the pooper.
Didn't you used to like? I don't know if you had a Game Boy as a kid, but I remember playing Pokemon in the bathroom, and it was the best because you just shut the world out, and your mom would be like, "How long has she been in there?" I don't know. I'm just playing Pokemon.
No, I had a secret closet that wasn't a secret at all, but it was my secret closet, and I would just go in there and hide and be left alone. Yeah, not the WC. Thank you.
Okay,
so this episode.
On this episode, we are reading The Dead Romantics, which is by Ashley Poston. She is an author, who'd have thunk it, but she has written kind of a wide variety of books. She's written some YA books. She's written a Buffy the Vampire Slayer prequel book. She's written a Hawkeye book about the bishop, whatever the first name of the gal who takes the next Hawkeye mantle. Kate Bishop. There we go. A few sci-fi books. So she's kind of like all over the place with her stuff. She likes her Dungeons and Dragons podcasts like I do, so I get it. And her arts and crafts like you two do.
Yeah.
Hells yeah.
Yeah.
We could be friends.
Yeah. We already are best friends. She just doesn't know it yet.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
So that's Ashley Poston. What's this book about, though?
So, who's ready to hear about what this book is about?
I'm so ready.
Oh my god, it's gonna be amazing. Okay, so here it is. Florence Day is a ghostwriter, and she's struggling to write the last book she's contracted to write. So she goes to her editor to beg for an extension, and he's like, nah, bitch, it must be done today. And she's like, you motherfucker, why are you so hot? So then she's like, all right, I'm going with my friend. We're going out to the club. I don't want to be here. I'm in a dress. This is the worst, right? And turns out the club isn't really the club. It's like a slam poetry thing, only you can read whatever you want. And who should show up except for her fucking ex-boyfriend who stole her life story and wrote it badly, and he wants to read that shit. So she's like, fuck this shit, I'm out of here. And the guy's like, whoa, I know that girl. I just told her to get her fucking shit turned in, and she's here. Whoa, that's crazy. So she's like, naturally, I must make out with this man, and successfully does. But then very bad news strikes, and she has to go home to her hometown in South Carolina, where she has to deal with all of her family drama, town drama, and all that other shit that she left in the dust when she left for New York City. And that is where we will lead in. Bum, bum, bum.
I like that we've stopped actually doing like a full, like, this is what this book about, and we just like get to a point, and then we're like, we'll tell you the rest.
Well, you'll find out. You'll find out. Or fucking read the book yourself. I don't know. Do your own research.
This might be a good point to say, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
We are going to spoil shit.
I'm going to spoil it.
Anything we do ever has a spoiler alert on it.
It really should, honestly, because I got no chill.
Well, you like yelled at me during The Good Place.
Did I?
Yeah, you did. Because we were talking about the ending, like the ending.
Well, that's 4 years worth of work. So,
Or if you're trying really hard, one weekend.
Yeah, well, some of us watched it in real time. That's all I'm saying.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Anywho. So, where would y'all like to start?
I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because there's so much stuff that happens in this book.
It is a well-packed, like, what is it? Like 350 pages, 340 pages? And it does not feel like it was 340 pages. It felt like you read like a 500-page book.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess let's talk about the supernatural element, because I feel like it will flavor everything else, right?
Yes.
Right. So supernatural element is our gal Florence can see ghosts and talk to them, interact with them, and all that. And so could her dad.
Yes.
We get no explanation for this. We get no other reasoning for why ghosts exist or kind of what the rules around ghosts are.
But it feels kind of like the reason we don't get that is because the characters themselves don't know. They just know it's an inherited trait.
Yeah, I wasn't upset about not having it because, yeah, like you said, it's they don't know either.
Right. It's not like they follow some practice, and so because of that, certain members of their family are able to do this. It's like, no, it seems to be pretty random.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just her and her dad. Her siblings can't do it. Her mother can't do it.
I think it was her dad's mother was able to do it. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
And so it's passed down, but like we don't know how it's passed down.
Mm-hmm.
Because it also doesn't seem to be like, oh, it was the firstborn situation, because she is the oldest of three. Because they never mentioned that. Like they never mentioned that her dad's the firstborn as well, or anything like that. So yeah, it just seems to be like if you get this particular chromosome,
right,
you're able to see the ghosties. So I mean, I feel like they give us as much explanation as an entire movie dedicated to it in The Sixth Sense does. You know what I mean? Like, we just know that he sees dead people. That's it. That's all we know. So, you know.
I will say the first time it came up in the book, it felt very kind of like jarring, because it was like, okay, we're going on this path. She's having trouble seeing ghosts. Other shit, or not seeing ghosts, Jesus. She's having problems writing this book. She's doing other shit. And then it's like, bam, a ghost. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
No lead in.
Well, what I like about it is those first few chapters are usually like establishing what is normal for this person in this world.
Yeah.
And so it's establishing that even though it's more normal for her than it is for us, obviously, as the reader, it's still not normal for her. Like, she still isn't like, oh yes, ghosts are everywhere and I just chat with them. She's like, fuck, another ghost today?
Well, she said it can be 2 months, 2 years where she doesn't see one, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's a ghost.
Right.
Yeah.
And she lives in New York City.
You think you'd be seeing ghosts everywhere in New York City.
Right? Fuck.
Well, it seems to follow the rule of having some kind of unfinished business.
Yeah.
Right? So not everybody who dies has unfinished business.
That's
I would assume.
true. But yeah,
it feels like the Casper rules, you know, that movie from the 90s. Like, which I always like then question, what are the three uncles' unfinished business? Like, what was their thing? That never gets answered. But that's not the story we're talking about, but it does bother me to this day.
And what were their actual names?
I don't
know. Anyway, but I also like that after she moves away from her hometown, because the whole reason that she ended up moving away from her hometown really was because she solved a murder with a ghost at 13.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, of course, was mercilessly bullied in a small town because that's fucking weird.
I do really like that the suspenseful element of the finding out what happened with the murder is always building alongside everything else that's happening in the book, because you're like, in the back of your mind, you're like, am I going to find out more about this? Like, I need to know more about this. And then they do satisfy you with that at the end.
Yeah.
And the way that she drops little nuggets of it too kind of increases your like mortification with her. So as Florence is like remembering or, you know, kind of interacting with her hometown more and remembering like all the bad stuff, you also kind of get more pieces of that. So at some point she mentions like having to sit on the witness stand at trial for the murder and explain that a ghost told her. But like it feels like as you're really realizing how bad this was for her is how she's like also growing in her discomfort at being home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and what you do eventually find out is truly horrific,
Yeah.
because it wasn't just some random person she'd never met before. It was a boy in her grade, in her class.
Yeah, she literally, she said that's what was the most jarring when he showed up dead as a ghost to her, is she literally been in class with him
Right.
like a couple hours before.
Well, and didn't really know that he was dead, right? Like,
Yeah.
had that moment of like, oh, I'm just chatting with this boy I like,
Mm-hmm.
which is awful.
Well, and then to also find out that it was his dad that killed him and
Yes.
then buried him at the ridge, which
Mhm.
I assume is just like,
I think
she
it's,
described it a little bit, but
yeah, what it looked like in my mind is basically just a high point
Yeah.
in the town.
Yeah.
That was pretty much just like prairie or something like that. You know what I mean? Just grassland.
yeah.
But I don't know. Like, I think it had this, like, it helps you understand her at the rate that we needed to understand her,
Yes.
which was
Yes.
really great.
I really did like the pacing in this book.
Yes.
And like it jumped around a little bit in her thoughts in the way that her thoughts jump around, but I actually kind of appreciated it for that.
Mm-hmm.
And it also starts fast,
Yes.
Yes.
which is, I enjoyed it because it was like funny right away. You were
Yes.
in the thick of it right away. It was
Yes.
just going.
Yes. I really enjoyed too that it almost felt like, and maybe this was just my experience, but it almost felt like as soon as I was like ready for a new piece of information about the murder or her home life or her work life, it was there. It was ready to go. And it was like, oh, great. This is what I needed.
Well, because the whole thing is a mystery, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
the murder she solves is a mystery. What's happening with Ben is a mystery. Trying to get her dad's funeral set up is a mystery. Not a mystery, but just like how she's going to be able to accomplish it.
Right.
The stuff with Anne, the ghostwriter, was like, I was not prepared for something. I was like, what the fuck?
Right? How often can you say that a twist in a romance novel took you off guard?
Right?
That did take me off guard. I was like, oh, excuse me?
Right? I was not prepared. So, okay. I think just so our audience doesn't get completely lost, let's quick go back and talk
Yeah.
about a couple people. So the author that she's ghostwriting for is Anne
Nichols.
That's what it is. And she's literally met her one time,
Mhm.
and Anne Nichols like read her work and gave her a critique and was like, hey, I would like you to be my ghostwriter. And the thing, like, as a reader that I didn't understand, I was like, okay, but if she's alive and kicking, why can't she write her own book? Like, is she ill? Like, that we don't have that explanation, right? Like, what made this woman give up her mantle to some stranger, essentially?
Right.
Yeah.
I just kind of assumed that she wanted to retire, but still wanted, before I knew what actually was, like she wanted to
Mhm.
retire, but she didn't, but she saw an opportunity to still like make money
Mhm.
or like continue her book
Her
series.
legacy,
Yeah.
essentially.
Right. Well, and you kind of have to make the assumption that Florence makes, right?
Yeah.
Because what other information do you have? And so that's being that's the like her impression of the situation, that's ours too.
Mm-hmm.
But as you go along, that starts to disintegrate because she was supposed to meet the deadline that day and was expecting, her publicist to be on her ass because she flies back home to deal with this family emergency. And she doesn't. She gets no phone call from this woman saying, where's my script?
Where's
Yeah.
my book? Yeah.
Where's my book? Right. And that continues for a while. And you just sort of are like, okay. And I won't reveal the twist yet, but it's a good one.
It very much caught me off guard. There was definitely moments where I'm like, what? I was like, she had to have said something to somebody, right? Like, there's nobody in their right mind that would have been like, absolutely not, you cannot go do this, blah, blah, blah. Her father fucking died. Like,
Right.
nobody's going to hold that against her. She would have definitely gotten an extension to be like, yes, go deal with your father. But in the book, it says nothing about her contacting anybody about this situation, and no phone calls, anything, no emails, anything. And it's like, I was kind of wondering the same thing as we're reading. I'm like, but Benji's dead. Like, so is nobody checking up on you?
Right.
Well, there's a whole bunch of confusion there because
Right.
the book focuses so much on what she's doing in the here and now
Mm-hmm.
in her little town of Marymount,
Marymount.
Yeah.
that you kind of like don't have that opportunity. At least I guess I didn't think about it. I thought about it, but I was just like, oh, whatever. She probably sent an email. Ben's dead, quote unquote dead. So he's dead. Her father died. Everything's probably in chaos, so nobody's checking on her. Was just kind of like where I was at.
Well, and the other justification that I have is she hasn't communicated with you once in this entire time.
Right.
Yeah,
Like, I guess that continuing isn't that weird, right?
I suppose. Yeah.
So here's the other aspect of it. And Liz briefly mentioned it, but her editor, who she made out with and parts ways with, and it, unfortunately, like seconds after she makes out with this very hot man, she gets the awful phone call that her dad has passed.
Yeah.
And is woefully upset, and her friend comes out, pepper sprays this poor guy in the face.
She doesn't actually pepper spray
Well,
him. She threatens to do it.
Yes.
I think it sprays. I just think he like manages to avoid it. but yeah, and like she just leaves town, and which of course you would do, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Only to find him at the door of her family's funeral home. So
Ben, you mean?
Ben, yes, to find Benji at her family's funeral home, and as it turns out, it's because he's dead, right? And so you as the reader don't get to find out for a long time what happened to him to cause his death, right? Like, I think it was pretty far into the first half of the book before we get the notification from her friend that he was in a car accident.
He wasn't even in a car. He wasn't in a car accident. He was hit by a car.
He was hit by
He
a
was
car.
a pedestrian.
Yeah,
Yeah, some van jumped a curb and hit him.
right.
Just because you briefly mentioned it, I gotta say that first makeout scene though was brief, but it was hot.
It was
Oh yeah,
so
I was
hot.
like, oh hello.
Yeah.
Oh my god! I was
I'll
like,
take tall, dark, and dreamy.
is this a tease of what's to come? It was not.
No.
It was not.
I'm gonna let y'all down as easily as possible. The smut in this does not live up to the rest of the book.
No.
The rest of the book, I would say, is top tier. The smut is not.
Nah,
No.
there wasn't a lot, but that first kiss scene was.
It was so hot. I was like, oh no. Oh my god. Well, and so I definitely had this moment. I don't know if the two of you did as well, but
Mhm.
as soon as I started reading about her conversation with her father, where and with her brother, where they're like, Dad's not taking care of himself and all that, I was like, oh, this man's gonna have a heart attack.
I thought he was gonna have a heart attack. I didn't know he was gonna die.
Right?
Right, yeah. Like, I was like, oh, he's going to have a heart attack. She's going to end up back in her hometown. I did not expect death, and that
Right.
came on swift wings.
Yes.
Yes.
The emotional flip-flop I had to make from that makeout scene to, like, her finding out that her father was dead was, like, I was there with her. I was like, oh my god. I was crying.
Girl, I'm a dumbass, and I was listening to it on audiobook, and I'm like, I'm going to go do errands while I listen to this. That was a poor decision. I was in public. Like, I was going to the makeup store thinking I was going to look for me to be cute. Shocker, it didn't happen.
What? Don't you fucking talk down to yourself like that. You're adorable. And you
Don't
know
talk
it.
to my friend like that.
Yeah, don't you talk about my friend like that.
Anyway, and so I'm sure I looked like an absolute fucking crazy person because I'm all like welling up while I'm walking through Ulta.
Yeah, and when that happens, you're never like effective. You're like walking around like an idiot, just like here, there. Where do I go? Emotions.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
I didn't know what to do with my hands, and then like 8 different people that worked there were like, "Can I help you with anything?" I'm like, "No." Like, oh god, I was flip-flopping, but I don't know. This hit me hard. Maybe it's because my mother has worked at a funeral home for 30-some years.
Oh shit! I completely forgot that this was Danny fucking Fuel right here.
It was Danny fucking Fuel. Like, my mom worked there for a long time. She was not a funeral director, but like, I know kind of a ridiculous a lot of funeral directors. Take your daughter to work day was interesting.
I was gonna say you've played in caskets before, so
I never got in a casket.
you've been near them
A
enough.
lot, yes. I also knew where the candy bin was in the funeral home.
Yeah, I was unprepared right along with her, and I think that's a sign of really good writing, because she set it up right. As soon as you're like, Dad's not taking care of himself, every movie, every TV show, every fucking book, that man's having a heart attack, and instead she was like dead, and you were like, oh no.
Yep. And she definitely built up a very different emotion to take it down.
Right.
Like that kiss scene, I was like, because usually that's like the beginning of a chapter, or like it just kind of like, oh, my phone's ringing, and not jumping from one thing to the other.
Well, it reminded me of, now there's a lot that you can complain about when it comes to How I Met Your Mother, but the writing isn't it. It's got really good writing, right? And so it reminds me of the episode where Marshall finds out that his dad has passed.
Yeah, that's a rough episode. That's like an out of nowhere situation.
Right. And I think that the intelligence of making that choice is that's what happens in real life. One minute you're sitting there talking with your friends, or hanging out or whatever, or even just had a fucking bowel movement, right? And that's immediately after, that's when you get the news that something horrible has happened. It comes in the middle of life. It does not come at the convenient beginning of a chapter.
Yeah, that's very true.
I think we were still talking about Ben, but we've gone off on this tangent about her dad, which makes me kind of want to transition to the family, because I thought that the way the family was written was really well done.
Yeah,
because the siblings were kind of like childish with each other and bickering a lot, and you had like the one sibling that was trying to mediate everything, which we've talked about families before, like that's how siblings act.
Well, and the misunderstandings the family have because they think certain things about one another, not bad things necessarily, but they just assume that they don't want to deal with this, or they don't want to do this, and it actually ends up hurting that other person's feelings because they're not being included.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
and that was
when
so
you're
smart.
When you're far away from people, it's really easy just doing some of that shit, because you're not going to see them tomorrow and have to confront the fact that I didn't really like what you did yesterday, right? Like, you can't have that conversation because you can very easily avoid it by not answering the phone.
Well, I also really liked how they kind of kept Florence out of a lot of the discussions, not on purpose, but just like, you haven't been around, so we're not used to including you.
Right.
Exactly.
And as an eldest that obviously left the house first, like, that felt really realistic to me, because, the family dynamic shifts when one person leaves, and it doesn't shift back when that person comes home to visit.
Right. Because it's a visit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, as somebody who did the big move, right? I'd come back and my siblings would have had massive development, right?
Yeah.
In the time that I was off having my adventures, and there can get a certain level of tension that gets created by that, not necessarily because you're like, I wish you didn't do this, or because it's a bad thing that the separation exists, because you have to grow up and you have to move on, but it is also something that can easily create rift and can easily create distance that is not related to your location.
Well, and in juxtaposition, because you two are both the oldest, I'm the baby. And so there was definitely moments when my brother came home from school and everything, and it's like, well, no, I live here every day and you don't. And so there's definitely the friction there. For him and me, it was our parking spot. We both had garage door openers to. My parents have a 3-stall garage, and the one single stall was always one of ours. But when he went to school, it then became mine. That's my parking spot. I park in the garage, and then that fucker would come home from school on a weekend or something, and I'd get off school and he'd already be home, and he's in my garage, and I was pissed.
Well, because as the person coming back, you take for granted that things have changed. So you come back and you're like, oh, they are just the way they've always been.
Right.
But they're not.
Yeah, no, I know that logically now, but I'm like, that fuckface.
Yeah.
I think for my little sister, it's the fact that even today, she gets relegated to the back seat, and I still get to sit up front with my mom when we go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, no, this is the order of things.
Oh, you guys are the worst.
To be fair, I don't usually ride in the back seat because it makes me sick.
It also
gives
makes me
headache.
sick. Yeah.
So there's that element to it as well.
To be fair, I helped change your diapers, so I
Yeah,
get to
big
fucking sit in the front
facts.
seat.
Yeah. Bitch, I cleaned your vomit out of my clothes. How about that?
So
My brother's
there you
not that
go.
much older than me.
Yeah,
He
I
didn't have to
get
do
that.
shit.
I wiped your ass.
He occasionally cleaned a scraped knee. I will give him that.
Aw, That's
Oh,
cute.
that's cute.
Mhm.
I occasionally caused my brother scrape knees.
Oh no,
Oh,
he
yeah,
did
for sure.
He did as well, but
Yeah. Anywho, the family dynamics were great.
Yes.
And even the mom who's just trying to like keep the peace, but is also like going through her own major grief, but is
Yeah.
also
Mhm.
trying to like not. She doesn't like seeing her kids suffer. You know, like all of that is very on point.
well, and on top of everything, her having to, because they're the only funeral home in that entire town and even the area.
But it seemed like, yeah.
And before they can do their funeral for their loved one, she still had like 4 funerals that she had to do before they could bury her husband.
I think that was such a good way to show her grief, though, because she
Mhm.
was trying to just continue, like,
Mhm.
continue doing things as they are, or as the dad, I can't remember his name, would have wanted it, Xavier.
Yes.
Yes.
And anytime the kids were like, how can I help? How can I help the funeral? And
Let
she's
me
just
do
like,
this.
no, just I have it. And,
Like to the point where she was getting snippy with
Yeah.
them about it.
and that
Yeah.
is a type of way somebody would be going through that.
Mhm.
Well, sometimes it's easier to distract yourself.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Than to actually acknowledge the emotions that are building in front of you.
Yep.
Like
Mhm.
inside of you. Yeah. Well, and I also think the dynamics of her sister Alice makes so much sense. It's
Yes.
the sibling that gets not necessarily left behind, but left behind stays behind is there through it all. Like,
Mhm.
how could you not have a little bit of resentment?
Yeah.
Well, and also a bit of the resentment because Frances can see
Mm-hmm.
the ghost and everything, and Alice cannot. But Alice is the one who went to school to be a funeral director, and that's what she does. She helps run the funeral home.
So should we talk about our romantic lead?
We probably should. I have to be honest, for a decent portion of the book, like he wasn't my focus, I guess.
Yeah.
And then you get to like the last third of the book, and you're just like, oh my god,
I'm in love with you. How? Yeah, no, for sure. He's like very much a side character in his own romance for a long time.
Well, and I actually kind of like that because she points out multiple times during her like thought process about Benji and everything that she doesn't really know him.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah.
Like, and I kind of like that. It's a different approach to a romance and everything. Like, she's enjoying getting to know him and everything, but she doesn't know a lot about him because she's trying to figure out how to help him cross over, as it were. I just air quotes and I hate myself for it. But so I like that they don't know each other very well and everything, and it isn't about, oh my god, I'm gonna jump your bones.
Well, and he kind of has to be a secondary character because while all of that is happening, she's focusing on her dad's funeral and her
Mhm.
family that she has only seen at like Christmas for the last decade. She hasn't been back to
Right.
this town in 10 years. So she's got a lot more like at the forefront of her mind.
She's got a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's surprised how many of the town are so excited to see her.
Yeah. Well, and no. Well,
Just say it. It doesn't matter. The whole thing's going to get spoiled.
it's true. Well, okay. So, I mean, one of the big things that's happening in the background is we don't know why her town is suddenly embracing her, right? This is the
Mhm.
same
Yeah.
town that she's described as like running her out of town. And everybody is like, oh my God, Florence, so good to see you. This is amazing. And it doesn't feel that disingenuous, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And then you come to find out as you read along that not only did they all read her book,
Mm-hmm.
because she wrote a book prior to taking on this ghostwriting gig, and it just didn't sell as well as she would have hoped. It only made it through one printing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then you come to find out that, and this is one of the big twists at the end. So if you are at all still thinking about reading this book, please go away now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a few big twists.
There's a
that
few
are
big
coming.
twists coming right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So her big thing that she keeps coming back to is that her family has thought that she's a failure this whole time. That she's just not only is not home with them, but she's off pursuing her dream, but she's not even doing that. That she's just...
And her brother's the only one who knows that she ghostwrites for somebody, but doesn't know who.
Right.
Oh my God. That broke my heart every single time in the book, because it comes up a lot.
Yeah.
Where she thinks about but dad never knew and he'll never get to know. And
right.
My fucking heart was breaking.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. The amount of times this book made me bawl.
Yes. There were several times where I stopped and cried for a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I was not expecting.
I was in public. I went to Costco like this.
But what we come to find out, the day of her father's funeral, she has a secret stash, right? And all the siblings do. And which, just to pause on my trajectory towards revealing the secret, did you guys have secret stashes as kids?
No.
Yes.
Oh, I did not. My room was my secret stash. Don't fucking go in there.
Yeah, I had an old computer that my grandpa gave me that had a bunch of writings and stuff on, but it wasn't a secret. I had plenty of notebooks that had writings in it. They weren't hidden anywhere.
Yeah.
I just knew that my family didn't give a shit.
Right.
So they're like, I don't care about this random ass shit she wrote.
We moved when I was 13 into a house that my parents built. I had a fairly large closet in my original bedroom, and I made a little reading, chilling area inside my closet behind my clothes.
Cool.
And that's where I hid things that I wanted.
So you had a secret stash and a hobbit hole?
Yes.
That makes so much sense.
It does.
If you were going to be a fantasy character, a hobbit is what I would assume.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think I would be a hobbit. I definitely have dwarf energy, but I think I would want to be a hobbit. Though a dwarf is not bad.
No.
Because then you just drink and then you, I don't know,
Drinking.
yell at each other.
Yeah.
Which sounds right. That sounds good.
Yeah, actually. Anyway, so Florence has a secret stash hidden in the funeral home under a loose floorboard. And in there, she's got old smut for apparently the X-Files. I get it.
Oh, yeah. We all wrote.
Oh.
Even if you didn't write it, you at least thought.
Quizilla calling us out.
Oh.
I don't want to talk about it. Anyway.
Did you have a fanfic? A specific one that you wrote?
I did.
What was it? What was the...
Well, I'll tell you this. I got called out in this book for writing this particular brand of fanfic.
Are you a HP fanfic writer?
Mm-mm.
I don't remember. Just say the words.
It was Lestat.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little Anne Ricey fanfic.
Oh, yeah. Because I read the first couple before I was adult enough to read them.
Yep.
And then I watched the movies.
Also, probably should not have been watching those movies.
Correct. I thought I knew things. Did not. Anyway.
I read a lot of Harry Potter fanfic, but I don't think I wrote any. I did write some Inuyasha fanfic.
Oh, good choice.
Mm-hmm.
Getting back to her stash. So she goes to open up her stash at the end after her father's funeral, and she's also just been dealt the devastating blow of Benji's ghost actually going off into the void, and she's like, oh my god. And she goes to look in her stash and finds receipts for the books she ghost wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very quickly revealed through a minor interaction with her sister Alice that the entire fucking town knows.
Yeah.
And you get these little hints of it, right? There's all those books are front and center in the bookshop window. Mm-hmm. And there's a book club that's specifically reading one of the books she ghost wrote. Mm-hmm. And they're like, I really loved this series, right? And she's like, I bet they don't even know anything. They probably don't even read it. And they're like, no, bitch, we like your writing. Because apparently the entire town is sworn to secrecy by her dad. And so this entire time, she's been sitting here thinking that her dad has no idea what she's capable of. And the reality is he's incredibly proud of what she's been able to accomplish. And it's devastating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my poor little heart.
Yep, no, emotional damage on the Danny side. I was
And by the time we got to that, I was already like ripped out
Oh,
because
yeah.
of Ben leaving and her dad's actual funeral, and I was just like,
Right.
great, now I'm gonna cry about this too.
Oh my god. I was just like, I guess I'm not doing anything for a few hours while I process this.
I was crying so hard my cat bit me.
Oh, she's like, why are you? What are you doing? Are you alright, lady?
Just
making a
no,
lot
you're
of
done,
noise, ma'am.
I will say, for the longest part, this book kind of felt more like a tragedy than a romance. Because not only is the fact that Ben is kind of a side character until towards the end, but the entire time I'm reading it, I'm just like, okay, so as you've explained this cannot have a happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
So either you're going to give us a happily ever after in some way, like, oh my gosh, she actually comes back to life, or it's just going to end sad. I don't know which direction you're going.
Well, and what
Right.
I was confused about, because so when she initially went in and was asking for more time, it's because she couldn't write the love story anymore because her ex-boyfriend just like emotionally devastated her.
Oh my god, we haven't even talked about Lee yet. That
Piece
fuckface.
oh shit.
Fuckface. Anyway, but so what she actually had talked to Benji about is that she wanted to write something that didn't necessarily have a happily ever after.
Right.
And so I thought that's kind of what she was going to do to us.
I thought this was gonna be a me before you situation a couple times, and I was like, listen, I wasn't prepared. I didn't go into this prepared, didn't know what I was getting into. That book, when I read that book, I literally laid on the couch and just wept. Just like
I do not know this book, but
Shame.
Oh, for real?
no.
You've like you haven't seen like the movie either?
No.
Wow. I thought this shit was just like everywhere, like The Notebook. Don't tell me you've never seen or read the Notebook.
Oh, I've seen it. I haven't read it.
Well, okay. I wouldn't go so far as to say that I like necessarily recommend or don't recommend Me Before You, because it's very much one of those things where you're not going to enjoy it if you're not in the right headspace for it.
Fair enough.
That's my opinion. But it devastation, emotional damage. And that's what I'm going to leave that with. But yeah, I thought it was going to be this book that was deeply romantic in specific ways and devastating in others. And that was just what this book was going to be.
Which it was.
It's true. It's
just
true.
not in ways you would predict.
Yeah, it's true. I would, and you know what? It was really nice and refreshing to not know how the book was going to end. The big thing about romance is it's predictably going to have a happy ending.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't 100% sure we were going to get there.
No, throughout the entire book, I was just like, why are you... No, stop giving me this romance because you're just going to kill it. You're going to kill it.
Yeah, I was kind of the same. Like, but how does this... I mean, I definitely had moments where I suspected what actually happened was what was happening, but there was definitely a lot of times where I'm like, but this can't happen. Like, because I've definitely read a couple... Oh, well, not a couple. I've read a few books where, like, it was a paranormal romance and one of the partners was a ghost. I have read those before, but they can actually like choose to be touched and everything. That is not the situation in this book.
Mm-hmm.
She reached out and touched him multiple times. He reached out to touch her multiple times, and her hand always goes through.
I thought for sure one of those times, especially that like kind of like sexy scene that they were having where he was like telling to her to undress, that like somehow there would be a touch, but there never was.
I really thought that was going to be the case too, that like one of the times they would want it enough.
Yeah.
And he would like, you know, and that would be how it like worked out. And I'm kind of happy I was wrong.
Yeah, same.
But can we also talk about that like sexy scene? Like, are we at a place where y'all are ready to talk about?
Go for it.
Okay. That was so fucking hot.
It was so hot and so sad at the same time.
Yes.
Like every other sentence I was like, damn, this is hot. And then I was like, but you can't actually touch. And it's so sad.
Well, and like, okay, so this is I have very few like outright negative things to say about this book, but we're gonna have Aaron's rewrite corner.
Well, we have to.
Or Michael's rewrite corner is like so here's the thing. I would have been 1000% behind all the choices made, except that when they finally do get back together, because it turns out, spoilers, it turns out he's fucking in a coma and alive. But when they do finally get back together, like, you already told us what you want to do.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yep.
Do it. Like, what the fuck? Like, you built it up. I was like, yes, this man is going to take his hands and stroke down low, right? And no, fade to black.
I know, it was a fade to black, and I was so upset.
I know, I was really upset too. There was definitely almost a table flip moment.
Yes, because I was like, okay, you have told us. You have set the scene. He needs to deliver on promises.
Well, and in setting the scene, she actually described it. Like, we're talking about, like, amount of fingers, the whole thing.
Yeah, yes, so much detail on what he wanted to do. And yet all they managed to do was, like, half-dressed make out. No. Ma'am, no. I was so frustrated.
I was very frustrated.
I was like, you don't need to repeat the scene, but, like...
The only thing I can imagine is that some editor had said, okay, your ending is going too long, and that's why they had to trim it out, because I don't know why she would fade to black otherwise.
She gave me blue balls.
Right.
It was rude.
Right? I don't give a shit. There's enough room for you to write 10 more pages of smut.
Oh my god, I would have taken, like, fucking 3 pages.
Right. Just
like,
give me
Oh.
Yeah, I was just like, this book is almost perfect.
That is
JK.
That is one of my only complaints about it, is like, I really didn't want the fade to black there. I was like, fuck you, come on.
Yes.
Give it to me.
You've been teasing us this whole time.
Like, this is how it should have gone. Florence should have been like, so remind me of what you wanted to do again. What
exactly.
was that?
I thought that's what's going to happen. I was like, you're in the same fucking room.
Yes.
Like, do the actual scene, but for real now.
She's like, I happen to be wearing a shirt with these buttons. Like, just do it, man. Give the people what they want. And, like, here's the thing. I will forgive you. Release that fucking scene. That's what it will take. I know you've written it somewhere. I'm talking to you, Ashley Poston. I'm talking to you. Give me my shit.
Give me that crack.
Goddamn crack.
She is really good at doing the, like, devastation, though.
Yes.
Because that moment when she finds out he's alive shortly after he has actually, like, disappeared from her life, and she thinks he's, like, moved on and everything, and she goes back to New York and she knows that he's alive. She goes straight to the hospital and, of course, runs into her fuckface ex in the elevator. But
I was so satisfied when she punched him, though.
Yeah,
oh, God,
I was like,
great.
I was like, yeah, you're taking the high road, yada, yada, yada. And then I was like, satisfaction.
Yep.
In the face, motherfucker.
But that moment where she goes to go in and realizes that his ex-fiance is sitting in there and everything, and that he might not remember anything, and she just chooses to walk away, I like heartbreak.
Yes.
I know.
Again.
Devastation.
How many times can this bitch break our hearts? A lot, as it turns out.
Yep.
Well, and Laura, his ex-fiance, was there, and I was just like, I know that they have to get together, but how are you going to do it? And I loved the way she did do it in his office.
Yes.
Oh, God, it was so cute.
Yes. Another great kiss, but not quite as good as the first, in my opinion. But yeah. Yeah. Oh. Well, and we have another situation kind of like My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where she's like, her memory of herself is Frump Girl, right?
Yes.
And he's like, no, ma'am. That is not the truth. I hate to break it to you, but you could look hot in a paper sack. So.
Well, the first time he saw her was the first time Lee, her stupid ex-boyfriend, saw her when she was wearing, like, Louis Vuittons and, like, this hot dress. But then he also saw her at what she thought was, like, her frumpy, like, oversized, like, scarf phase. And he's just like, hot, 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 hot. And I'm like, yes.
Well, and I love that she's like, I have not washed my hair in 4 days. And I was like, ooh, so this is going to be one of those where you're going to, like, call out the girlies. Okay. And then she was like, also, like, all I have in my house right now is mac and cheese to eat. And I was like, again. Okay. And then she's like, I've pursued my dreams and I'm failing at them. I'm like, God damn it.
You're like, yeah, stop doing that.
Jesus.
Do not need to feel called out.
Yeah, no. There were so many times. But the one that really hit me, though, was she was like, stop thinking. And I was like, girl.
Right?
How'd you get my diary?
I also really, really, really loved Rose. And I know I'm kind of like jumping to a different thing, but like as you're talking about like her life in New York, I'm just picturing Rose.
I
especially
love Rose.
especially from Florence's perspective, because she sees Rose as this like super hot, super put together, super successful marketing, like I don't know, marketing consultant, whatever she is. And Rose is just, I don't know, she kind of seems to embody like what you would expect a New York socialite to be. Not socialite, but you know what I mean, to be. And it's that perfect example of like, I'm the frumpy girl and here's my hot best friend.
Yeah.
Right? Oh my God.
I felt that deep in my soul. I'm like, God damn it.
And
stop looking at me and my friends.
And Rose is just like, no, you're hot. Put my dress on. We're going out.
No, I'm hot, yes. But you're going to be hot too, bitch. And you're going to have to deal with it.
We're going to be hot together.
I love that the dress she made her put on was one that Rose had been trying to get her into in months. And she finally succeeded that night. She's like, yeah, no, bet. I got this. I have the patience of a saint. This will be on you.
Right.
And then when Rose shows up at her dad's funeral, I was like, best friend.
Yeah.
The second she showed up, I'm like, there we go. Yep.
Yeah. That's what you do.
Yeah.
Because of course she would.
Yeah.
And then she starts dating Alice. And I'm
Oh,
like, oh
God.
my God,
Yeah.
I want to know their story. Please write a book about them.
Well, I was like, I love that y'all have no fucking chill.
Right.
Like they're both like suddenly turned into two people. Like throughout the entire book, they are so like strong-minded and like, I know what the fuck I'm doing. Get the fuck out of my way. And then they like see each other and they're like, I am now the dumbest boy in school.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I will say, just because we're touching on Rose and Alice, I think Ashley did such a fantastic job of like queer inclusion.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because she just never mentioned it as it was anything different. Like Dana uses they them as their pronouns.
Right.
Correct.
Rose and Alice are bi, if not lesbians, and it's just like it just is.
Well, and her brother's gay.
Her brother's gay. Like
Yeah.
it just exists.
Right. Like it's just a thing.
Yeah.
It's like not even something that's thought about. Yeah, that was great. I think that is, to date, in the books that I've read, the best representation of a non-binary person that I've read. Because it wasn't like, oh, I need to make sure you know that this character is non-binary. It was just Dana goes by they, them pronouns. And therefore,
there was no
I will
mention
refer
of it.
to Dana
It was
as
just
they
always
and them.
they, them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and throughout the entire book, it's just, oh, Dana, they are doing this.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
There
then
was
her...
no further thought put into it. There was no further explanation put into it.
Correct.
And then their husband, John, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
who just always seemed to be in the craziest outfits.
Yeah.
It just all seemed kind of like to fit, and it was lovely.
They had a nice mention too, because you don't realize it until they just throw this offhanded. That's her ex-boyfriend.
Yes, that is Florence's ex-boyfriend from high school or something like that.
Yeah, John and her dated.
Yep.
I totally forgot about that, if I'm being so honest.
Because it was just a very casual mention, and it seems like they always had a good relationship, even after they broke up and everything. They didn't seem to, I think, ever have any animosity. But he really found himself after she had left the town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she does have one kind of little blurb about like, oh, he doesn't really look like I remember him, but he's still just John.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they run the cutest B&B. That B&B sounds fucking adorable, and I love it.
It does. I hope they have good breakfast there.
At the very least, they have bagels and cream cheese, because that was her second breakfast.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But what about Elevensies?
On the note of second breakfast, this book, I don't think I've ever read a book that has this many damn pop culture references.
Yes.
And it's just like unforgiving about it. Like you either get it or you don't.
Yeah, like we're not slowing down so you can hop on the train.
No.
I also gotta say, like, on that same line of thought, kept talking about romance novel authors like she was talking about all of the romance novel authors, but just kept naming the same 5.
Yes.
Which is super weird. Like, she was like, Nora Roberts, Casey McQuiston, Christina Lauren, like constantly making references to these same authors, and I was like, there are other authors. Like, clearly she's got favorites.
Yeah.
Which, like, good on you, girl. I get it. I will say though, this did inspire me that like I'm feeling like I need to go out and read my first Nora Roberts.
Really?
Yeah,
It's never on my list to do.
I feel like I gotta, like, here's the thing. You gotta respect an institution like that.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
Sure.
She churns them out. And so I gotta find out what it's about. I read by, is it Julia Greenwood? Something like that.
Got nothing for you.
I got nothing.
I'll look it up before we do recommendations and give you an actual name of this author. But she is also like an institutional author. The book was fun. It was also kind of part murder mystery, which was fun. I did enjoy it. It is one of my recommendations. So spoiler alert, later on, this is what I'm going to recommend. But there is something nice about reading these authors who really know their genre, you know?
Sure.
And while I love a lot of the modern romance authors, sometimes it feels like they've got a little bit of disrespect for that, and it's like, these women, especially because it's mostly women, let's be honest, these women carved this path. Don't act like you're brand new, okay? So we find out that our boy Benji is actually the grandson of Anne Nichols, the author that Florence is ghostwriting for.
Yeah.
And that alone is a big reveal, because you're like, what? Okay. But then he's like, no, hold on. Don't get excited.
I got more.
There's more. And he's like, so it turns out that, like, not only did I know you were her ghostwriter, I also don't know how you became her ghostwriter, but I have just accepted it that you volunteered for the job. But I promise you this, you did not speak with my grandmother. And she's like, yeah, I fucking did. Like, you're so stupid. And he's like, nah, maybe her ghost. And then she's like, what? And he's like, she died 5 years ago, bitch. Right around the time that you claimed to see her in an entirely different state from where she died.
And she was also like bedridden for like a year.
Yeah.
So like full on, she was not in New York.
Right. I feel like perhaps Anne Nichols was manipulating the puppet strings here a little bit, because we see her Florence sees her one more time, and she recognizes her from her eccentric sweater.
Yes, in the elevator going up to the hospital to see Ben after he wakes up from his coma, which also we actually really haven't talked about that much, but he's not dead. He was in a coma the whole time. Woo, there you go. Big reveal. There you go. Yeah, and like that's just like such a throwaway thing that she writes too. It's like, oh, and then Anne's back.
Yeah. And she just basically says thank you, and you're like, Anne.
And then it's like that was her unfinished business, was getting her grandson to like fall in love or something. It couldn't possibly have been the book, because she hadn't finished it yet.
No.
Right? So what is she saying thank you for?
We don't
exactly
really know.
She wanted them to fall in love. That's my theory on it. My take, if you will.
Well, it makes sense, because if Anne had been like sticking around to maybe keep an eye on Ben and keep an eye on Florence writing her series, essentially, she would likely know that Ben fell in love with Florence's first book, which would make sense, because that would explain why Anne picked Florence to begin with, is she at least knew that she could write.
Well, can we talk about how much I love that Ben loves romance?
Yes, we can. Well, it makes sense, because he was basically raised by Anne, wasn't he?
Right.
Yes.
Before you know that, I was just sort of like, whoa, wait, like, you're into this?
Well, and I thought it was such a nice twist to have like it wasn't a Grumpy Sunshine, but like kind of that relationship specifically for romance, where the main female character in Florence was like, no, romance is dead. I got my heart stomped on by this Lee motherfucker, and I can't do it anymore. That's the whole thing, is she can't write romance for over a year after her breakup. And Ben is just like, no, it still exists. And he does all the cute, like, he takes her out and they people watch, and he's like, how would you write their scenes?
Yes.
And like, how would you write this scene between, like, I don't remember what he said, but it was like some sort of editor and some author. God, he used a specific phrase. I can't remember.
Well, it sort of reminds me a little bit of that scene in particular, where he's like asking her to describe how she would like play out the story. It reminds me a little bit of Lost City when
Oh yeah.
what's his name? We're just gonna call him Channing Tatum. Ask Sandra Bullock to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like how would you make this Dash story sexy? And I really enjoyed it, and I frankly just now think that more men should read romance. I mean, I always thought that more men should read in general. I don't know why it's been turned into this
woman only thing.
Yeah, it's super
it is super weird,
gross. But like, also, guys, read the romance. We're literally telling you what we want.
We're giving you tips, bud.
That's the whole joke on TikTok, right?
Right.
Is the guys who are like, "You got a book, girlfriend? Read her books."
Yeah.
That's what she wants.
That is most of the time.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. Yeah,
Sometimes
there's
it's
definitely
like,
things
no,
in
no,
books
no,
that
no.
I read that I do not want.
Yes.
Don't read the spider romance and think that I want that.
I don't
Yeah,
don't want you to come at me in a spider costume unless it's Spider-Man.
But the bondage scene.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Maybe.
Perhaps. We could build to that.
Yeah, there needs to be a lot of consent and communication before with the bondage scene. That just came out of nowhere.
Yeah. And you cannot come at me with "Go Web, go." And then
I will just
fire
laugh
off.
at your ass
I
and
will
make you
punch
feel bad
in the
about
face.
yourself.
That is not what we're talking about.
Let's talk about Lee, because we really haven't talked about Fuckface McGee.
Oh my god, this motherfucker. So Florence is like madly in love with him, thinks this is the one, the guy. And he's just like a fucking total douche to her.
Well, to be fair, like, when she's at first describing their relationship and how their relationship was, I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. And then, like, he calls her Bunny and everything. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cute. Until later on, you realize that he was kind of making fun of her.
Yeah.
By
not
calling
kind
her
of.
Bunny.
I would go a step further and say he was actively dehumanizing her, because
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to treat her the way he did in stealing her fucking life story if you don't think of her as actually human.
Yes, I will say in his defense, he didn't really understand that it is her life story, because she backed off and said, oh no, it's just a story that I'm thinking about writing. But that does not negate the fact that it is her story, not his.
And he just stole it to write his own book.
Well, and
And
that's
did it
true
badly.
to a
Yeah.
point. She says the ghost vision thing, that is fictionalized, but like he's also ripping off her actual fucking family.
That is
Yeah.
true, because
You
he's
know?
writing about the funeral home in a small town
Yeah.
and her parents and everything.
I
Well-
think that's got to be the most intrusive thing, to have somebody write a book, a movie, whatever about you.
No.
Yeah.
Even if you're like a celebrity doing like the biopic kind of thing, please no. Just like forget I exist. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Well, and he was in his book, he apparently wrote how sad her life was growing up, living in a funeral home and everything, and how depressing like her family is and everything. And that is not her family. Clearly he never met them.
Right.
They are sweet, endearing people who give a shit about other people. And the reason that everybody goes to them, not only for the fact that they are pretty much the only funeral home around, but it's because the people feel so cared for in a moment of extreme stress and need.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. They dated for like 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, she only got to see her family when they came for Christmas. But like, that's not a fucking excuse for this guy to have never met them.
Yeah. No.
Big red flag. Big.
For sure. Well, and even when she's back home and she was like, Lee would never want to come here. And then Ben, oh my God, so cute when they were playing cards and everything, is even as a ghost and only she can see him, is still trying to like be involved and like be there to support her through everything she's doing, and is constantly asking like, how can I help related to the funeral and stuff. And she's just like, Lee would never do any of this. Like, Ben is a ghost. He can't even see or touch or talk to anybody. And he's here for me more than Lee ever would have been.
He cheated at cards for her.
That was very cute.
It was really cute.
It was.
One of the lines that stuck out to me, and I'm going to kind of butcher it a little bit here, but basically at one point it gets brought up that one of the big problems with Lee's book is that he couldn't possibly write a small town because he thinks they're either Gilmore Girls or what was the other one?
Sweet Home Alabama.
Was that what it is?
I think, yeah.
It was something like that.
Yeah, it was, very much where one of those things where like, no towns are like that.
No.
It's just not.
No.
it's fine if you're making a fantasy, which is what Gilmore Girls is. But like, if you're gonna actually talk about the reality of a town, no, man. That's
like,
just not.
I wouldn't be able to. I don't think I would be very effective at writing a small town too much. I did not grow up in a small town. Granted, both my parents are from very small towns. I have spent quite an extensive amount of time in them, but I didn't live there. And I know that. I wouldn't try.
To be fair, I don't think I would be good at running a small town because I did live there because I just ignored the town.
Mm.
But also, like, I did my best to be invisible. But I could write the school because, like, everybody in the fucking school knows you.
Here's the thing that I think should be the takeaway in that conversation about him failing so epically to describe her life when he had the first-hand source, or to describe the small town, and he doesn't understand what they're like. If you're struggling a little bit, Danny, imagine somebody who's from New York City trying to describe nowhere. Where they at? South Carolina? They're not going to be able to do it. But like, when people have the conversation of, do you have the right to tell certain stories, right? Mm-hmm. If we can have a conversation about how there's so much nuance lacking in somebody who's never lived in a small town, at least for some amount of time, writing a small town, how difficult do you think it's going to be writing about a race that isn't yours, writing about a sexuality that isn't yours, writing about a gender that isn't yours? You have to be working with people who are from those communities to be able to tell those stories. And that's why I just think it's so irresponsible when so many people are like, oh, well, I can just tell whatever story I want. I'm like, you can. You'll probably tell it wrong.
You probably tell it badly. Because you need to get input from people of the same experience that you're talking about.
Right. And there's so many people who just go, yeah, I'm going to write it anyway. And the result is usually they're suddenly surprised when there's this backlash because people are like, what you wrote was offensive. And it's like, what you wrote was offensive, bitch. Don't fucking write shit you don't know. They say write what you know for a fucking reason. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Or you just create your own world.
That's true.
Because then you just know everything because it's your own.
Yeah. I'm off my soapbox now.
I do want to loop around back to her dad for a moment because there is a really sweet thing that he was doing that I have to mention because it made my heart so happy. And it's that, so what he did, because he could also see the ghosts, he often helped them move on and everything. One of the things he was doing was on the anniversary, on this couple's anniversary every year, he had flowers, her favorite flowers, sent to her every year, which is what her husband used to do every year. And he is essentially waiting until she dies so that they can move on together.
Well, and then we get to see them together at the end.
I know.
When she has passed. Yeah. Oh my God. I was like, that's the sweetest fucking thing I've ever heard. It's tragic. It ripped my heart out. I had to put a Band-Aid on it.
I don't think it's tragic. Coming from somebody that, quite honestly, I could see myself doing that if that was a possibility. I don't think it's tragic. You wouldn't want to move on with the other person. It's just like, I'm just waiting and I'm just enjoying you enjoying life. Like, it's actually a lot. Honestly, it would be an afterlife, at least a temporary one, that I would find a joy in, of still being able to like be with that other person until we could move on together.
Well, okay, so I watched this devastating TikTok where this girl realized that there was this woman who got one of those joint headstones, and she passed first, and after she passed, her husband moved on and married someone else, and then got buried with that person.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? You're waiting around for this person, and they move on, and like you're happy that they're happy, but also you've been waiting for them. Oh, God damn! I hope the afterlife is either quiet and nothingness, or solves a lot of problems.
I also like the thing that her dad did, and this is where this is one of the places that I broke hard, which is at his actual funeral when she was reading the letter, and he was saying like all of the balloons and streamers are going to be for all the birthdays that I miss, and like, oh my God, I was just like, I'm gonna cry. And the flowers, the 1,000 wildflowers were for all of the flowers. And all of their petals were for every moment that I'll love Bella, his wife, or something like that. And I was just like, this is too much.
Well, we also got to address the oldest sibling elephant in the room. I'm sorry, Liz. It must be done.
No.
Everything.
No.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, there were a lot of moments in this book where I was just like, you didn't need to call out his eldest siblings like that.
You didn't need to do that.
Didn't need to feel that.
But specifically in his like will and his demands for his funeral, he addresses the fact in his letter that the whole point of it was to force his oldest daughter to ask for help. And I was like, bitch.
Right? He made these like massively extravagant demands or requests to force her to ask for help, and I was just like, you son of a bitch. Son of a bitch.
Oh,
don't you tell me that I can't do it all on my own.
Right?
And the way she got help for certain of those things, like the wildflowers, her high school bully arranged it.
Right?
That was I mean that was cute, but to me I was a little too perfect.
I don't think it was, just because like they're not like friends now. And I like the way she was like, I accept that you've changed. That does not mean I accept you into my life.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. One good gesture does not clean a slate.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do like to imagine that people are capable of change. And I like that that character is there to prove to her that not only are good people capable of change, so are people who were not so great to you before.
Right.
Correct. And it has been 10 freaking years. They're not, in high school anymore. They're not whispering at each other.
The one thing I wanted to talk about with the ending, and I say endings because it felt like there were so many points that the book could have ended, but it kept going, but not in a bad way. Like, where you read some books, sometimes you're like, you should have ended back at that moment.
Yeah.
At that beat back there.
Yeah.
But I like that she didn't end either like right away when Ben and Florence like have that kiss and realize that it
was the thing.
Yeah, that Florence realized that Ben remembered, and Ben realized that he wasn't just dreaming about the ghost situation. But that it kept going like to the wedding and like all of these other moments, because it just allowed it to feel like really wrapped up at the end. Like when it came to the end, I was like just like a big sigh, like, okay, that's good.
To be clear, nice. It was her brother's wedding, not Florence and Ben.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Right.
It was Carver and
Nikki's
wedding.
I would have been like, let's pump the brakes there.
Yeah.
Well, they did say, I love you.
Pretty boldly, pretty quickly.
Yes. Yes.
But, trauma bond.
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
It's true.
For sure.
They definitely went through a lot together.
Yeah. While their relationship is certainly going to move forward, I don't think that I love you comes with the strings attached that it normally does.
And I feel like they are both mature enough people that if they need to reevaluate, they're going to have that conversation.
And we got to see them actually like live out some of the moments that they dreamed, like the dancing, which was so sweet. Yes. Not dreamed, but like did when he was a ghost.
Yeah.
And that was very fulfilling.
Can I tell you my absolute take you out of the romance moment that I had?
What?
Sure.
All I could think the first time they touched was fucking Voldemort. I can touch you now.
You're a fucking creep.
Okay. That is not the fault of the book.
No,
that's your brain.
No, it's not. That's all on me. And
Crazy
now
ass
you get
brain.
to have that in your brain too.
No, I'm acknowledging it and then letting it go away.
My brain doesn't do that. Damn neurodivergence. Fuck you, Wiggles.
My brain does some really fucked up shit. That's all I'm gonna leave that with.
You fucking weirdos.
Anywho,
I just want to hit one little note.
Do it.
I love the mayor.
Oh my gosh, the mayor is a dog.
Oh my god, right? When she first said like the mayor was a dog, I thought she meant like literally that he was like a piece of shit, right?
Yeah.
Which is also an accurate small town thing.
Right? Yes. And then it was a literal dog and I was like, yes.
He's a
I'm
golden
so
retriever
fucking psyched.
Named Fetch.
Yes.
There's a really cute line, and she's people watching because he's making her people watch. And
Ben is.
Yes, Ben is. And she's looking out, and she's like, well, this person's doing this thing, and this person's that thing. And the mayor's lifting his leg on something. And she's like, hell yeah, mayor, fight the power.
Stick it to the man.
Stick it to the man.
It's like, that's funny.
And it cracked me up. I just love Fetch. I don't know why I needed him to be a part of this podcast, but I needed him to be a part of this podcast.
No, but it does point out the fact that there is some really good humor in this book. And
There
sometimes
is.
it just kind of like fucking comes out of nowhere and you're like, Just like, okay, yeah, I'll laugh right now.
Yes. Well, and I also like that he was almost like protective of Ben, and it almost makes you wonder: has he been doing this with all the ghosties?
Right?
Well,
yeah,
that
you
is
can see the ghosts.
I mean, that is the thing,
Mhm.
right? That animals, including cats and dogs, are more in tune with the supernatural or the ghosts and stuff. So that brings us to the ratings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
So what was your guys' spice rating? And don't hate rate it for the fade to black at the end.
Oh, no, I won't do that. I'm not that mean, but I am still upset. I
Sure.
will say, I mean, like, it really wasn't that spicy.
No.
It's just not.
I think the best I can probably give it is a 2, and that's me stretching it a little bit. Yeah, there were scenes that were hot, but they never.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going 1.5 because and that's nothing against it.
No.
It's just that it's not spicy.
No.
Like, there were definitely scenes that were hot. I fucking loved that kiss. His dirty talking was chef's kiss for the little bit
Mhm.
that we had. It's just there's not enough for it to really be considered spicy. And there's a fade to black when I'm like, you could have told me things.
Yeah, that fade to black.
Mhm.
What a fucking
What a waste.
kick in the balls. Kick in the balls. I'm gonna say a 2.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna say the 2, but I do agree. It's like it's just cusped into 2. It's like it just like crept just like a little bit in there.
Well, that's the thing. I thought she was teasing us and basically edgelording us over here, like to finally be like, all right, you can
It's
have
time
it.
to go to
And I'd
Pound
be like,
Town.
yes, and then she didn't. God damn it.
What about your romance rating though?
Ooh, that one's a little bit harder to define.
Isn't it?
You know, I'm going to give it a 3.5 because I really did like their relationship, but I would not say for like the first half of the book
No,
that their relationship was critical to the plot.
not at all. I think it was critical to the plot in the sense that like it got Florence moving forward, but it wasn't their romantic relationship that did that,
Mhm.
you know?
Right.
But just the way it wrapped up though, I think I have to give it a 4.
Fair enough.
I was kind of leaning towards 3.5 as well. I love their relationship. Don't get me wrong. Like, I actually really like them as a couple. I like that it's a slow build into something because they didn't have a choice because they couldn't fucking touch each other.
Yeah, if we would have gotten the payoff of that, this would be a whole different conversation.
Oh, fuck yeah.
We would. Oh, anyway.
Okay.
Overall.
So here's the thing. The perfect book doesn't exist. You know why? You didn't put that smut bit in my book. Otherwise, this would have been my first 5. And no, she stole it from me right at the end. So she gets a 4.5. I am mad enough to take 0.5 off for that ending.
But I think it's fair because,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
But I fucking love this book. And like, okay, I promise I won't rant and rave about this for too long. But I will say, after reading so many books where they were flat out fucking disrespectful to the English language, to have somebody write a book that's well written, knows that every chapter should have its own arc, like carries so many plot points all the way to the end and through, and I was like, oh my god, it's such a well written book. It's so good.
This is such a minor thing, but I love that she actually gave the chapters titles.
Yes.
And titles that made sense too.
Yes.
And sometimes even kind of told me what was going to happen. I
Yes.
was like, oh, look at what you're doing there.
I see what you're doing, you little wink wink, you little nod nod. I'm there.
I didn't notice that as much, but I also was listening to the audiobook.
Right.
They probably
so-
don't name the titles in the audiobook.
They did say it,
Oh.
but it's one of those things that, like, I just didn't
You didn't catch it. I get
I
that.
didn't catch it as much because, one, I was devastated 90% of the time.
So what's your overall?
My overall is also a 4.5. I really want it to be a 5, but it is such an amazingly written book. I loved the characters. There wasn't, like, the people that I'm supposed to hate, I fucking hated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I just, yeah. And the fact that she could over and over again emotionally devastate me, it's so good. And I really did appreciate it. Fade Black does take me away from a 5, though.
I will say 4.5 as well, but it's not the fade to black. There was something as I was reading the first half of it where I was just like, I was feeling like I couldn't get into the first half, but To be fair, that might have nothing to do with the book because I'm in a little weird place with reading right now. Like, I don't know where I'm at.
Sometimes you get book weary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely been there.
Same.
Okay. What about your recommendations then?
Okay. I'm going to let you guys. I don't want to say your name wrong and be a fucking asshole. I mean, I am an asshole, but I don't, you know what I'm saying.
I do. Well, I can actually kick us off then.
Okay.
I will say, even though I've said this book before, I do think Book Lovers by Emily Henry is probably the closest recommendation I can give. It's not in any way, shape, or form paranormal, but it is about a book agent and her editor who both end up in the same small town together. And there's a lot of small town shenanigans, except it's the town he's from and she's visiting, and they're both working on the same book together by a different author. So it has a lot of the same love of books. It has the small town vibes. It has the kind of rivals-ish to lovers, though that's not in this book as much. She kind of gets past that pretty quickly in The Dead Romantics. So yeah, that's my recommendation.
Okay. So I've got 2 recommendations for this one. I could have so many more, but I narrowed the field for the sake of time. The first one I have is the movie Ghost, arguably the most 80s romance of 80s romance. But also, it's Swayze as a fucking ghost making pottery sexy, okay? It is what it is. And so if you want a ghost man who's hot, that's the one. The second one I have is... I actually got pretty close to getting the name right, which impresses me. The Bride by Julie Garwood. The premise of this book is that I mean, it's really complicated if I'm being totally honest, but let's just simplify it by saying this girl's guardian promises 2 of his daughters to these Highlanders, and she happens to be one of the chosen ones, if you will. And so you've got what seems like a classic Highland like romance kind of thing going on, but then there's also a murder mystery at the very beginning where they're like, did he kill his last wife or not? And it's a wild ride, I won't lie. So check that one out because it's also got that mysterious thing interwoven with the romance. So Danny, take it away.
Okay, so mine is Safe Haven by Nicholas Sparks. Because there is the small town feel of it and everything, and it's about a woman who's been abused, who runs away and just kind of gets off the bus in this small town and everything, and she gets drawn in with a guy who has a couple of kids and spending time with him until they start to fall in love. It does have the ghost aspect because his deceased wife is there kind of looking over things and everything.
And like approves?
Yes. So it's she in a protective way.
Okay.
Because her the girl who was abused, who ran away, her husband does show up and ends up like burning down the house that the kids were in and everything.
Shit, man.
And yeah, it's a really good movie and book.
Interesting.
It sounds very intense.
Yeah.
It is. It's very intense, but it's really good.
But also, that's kind of like Nicholas Sparks, like MO. He's like,
it's true.
What if I took this really nice thing and I ruined it? Have you ever fucking watched or read like A Walk to Remember? You're like, oh, they're like he's changing, and she's like making him a better man. Cancer. Listen, dude. No.
Let's wrap this
up.
Okay, well, folks, if you like this episode of the thing that fucking tits
and ass. Tits and ass.
Comment tits and ass if you want more tits and ass.
All right, folks, if you like this episode, you can find us out on all of the socials at Wrong Dust Jacket, or you can find us out on our website at wrongdustjackets.com. Please, give us a like, give us a review, give us a recommendation. We'd love to hear from you. We are going to run out of ideas on our own eventually, so if y'all could help, that'd be tight. Cool beans. All right, bye, y'all.
Bye-bye now.
Goodbye.